Are there certain ways that you should play with a puppy or not play with a puppy
Yes.
early
Great
on? And should you
question.
be giving them certain types of like mental stimulation?
Yeah. So the one of the things, anything you establish as a puppy will probably continue on as an adult.
Okay.
So for example, I always think like, what is a puppy's favorite thing to bite? And I'm like, oh, your fingers. They move.
Or
they're
your
fleshy,
toes.
or your toes, or your pants. And so if you need to start distracting them, giving them a substitute at early. Otherwise, they'll still do that when they're older, and
fingers
then
older, yeah.
yes, that's not so good. So keeping them entertained with safe items is a good idea.
Welcome to Care Experts, a podcast dedicated to providing the inside scoop on health and self-care.
Make sure you join us each week for candid conversations with wellness and medical specialists.
Yes, real experts here to help you make the best choices for you and your loved ones.
I'm Melissa, a native Texan living in Atlanta.
And I'm Selah, a Californian through and through, and we're your co-hosts.
That's right. We're both proud moms here to have meaningful conversations with experts from all over the country who empower, inform, and inspire.
From cosmetic to dental and vet to vision, this is Care Experts.
Selah, what's up?
Hello.
It's so good to see you again.
So good to see you.
I love when we get together and have these chats.
I know.
I do. It's like a little break from being a mom, but also it's time to just like get really informed about topics we really care about.
Exactly. And I love to learn and to share with all of our listeners. It's really great.
Yeah. What are we
And
talking about today? I know you're like, dun, 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 drum roll. What?
Puppies.
Oh, who doesn't love puppies?
Everybody loves puppies.
Everybody loves puppies. But does everybody know how to take care of a puppy?
I mean, truthfully, I do not.
Puppies are a lot of work.
I have no idea. I don't think that's like a baby. It's similar.
Well,
maybe.
I mean, think about newborn babies and
Maybe,
them
yeah.
not really knowing much of anything about the world or their bodies or that they need to, sleep. You got to
Yes.
train puppies the same way you sleep train a baby. I mean, it's a little bit different.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you know, because you have a dog.
Yeah, I have a dog. We didn't get him as a puppy, but I've had puppies before.
Okay.
Puppies can be a lot of work.
I've heard this. That
They're
they can
very
keep you
cuddly and
up.
very cute, but they can be a lot of work.
Okay.
And you just want to make sure that you're setting yourself up and your puppy up for success.
Well, that's why
right?
we're here today.
Yeah, we have a real treat for everybody today. We have Dr. Kathy Wentworth. Dr. Kathy Wentworth received her veterinary medical degree from the University of Pennsylvania. She has 23 years of diverse clinical practice experience.
Wow, that's incredible.
I mean, it's major. It means that she really loves what she does. right?
Exactly.
And clearly she's good at it.
Yeah.
And she looks so warm and approachable in her
know.
pictures.
We are so excited to talk to her today about all things puppy.
All things puppy.
Hello, Dr. Kathy.
Dr. Kathy.
To the show. It's so good to see you.
It's
Great
great
to
to
see
see
you.
both of you.
Thank
for
you.
being here. You are just such an amazing source of knowledge for our pets.
Yes.
Having been a veterinarian for over 20 years now, right?
Yep.
Wow.
It's just been one of the funnest things ever. Every day you wake up and you get to go see all kinds of dogs, cats, and puppies.
Yes, puppies.
Ah, puppies are everybody's favorite, though, right?
cute. Little faces. Yes,
Little paws.
absolutely. What is your favorite thing about being a veterinarian, especially with the little puppies?
With the little puppies, oftentimes it's their first visit to the veterinarian, and they're innocent little babies, and they look like, what are you here? So I love to pick them up and carry them around, because even if they're like a golden retriever or even a large breed dog, usually I could pick them up at that
still
point.
pick 'em up, yeah.
So I carry them around. I tell them how beautiful they are.
Give them some
And-
love.
yeah, so that way, and it's really funny, they remember that for years and years. If you make a good impression first visit, as a puppy especially, they will remember that always.
That's so
want
good
to
to
come
know.
back.
They
That's
want to come back. So, and then also treats are always good. It's always fun to like give them a little bit of peanut butter or a little bit of their favorite treat.
love
And they're like, wow.
Yeah, this is amazing.
You're a treat person.
You're my
I'm coming
friend.
back here for
sure.
That is
Yes.
amazing.
So let's say I'm a person, and this is my first pet I've ever had, and I have this brand new puppy. What are some of the essential healthcare things that I should do for my puppy?
Yeah, that's a very big question.
Yeah.
So
Break it down,
So
Dr.
many
Kathy.
things.
break it
Yeah.
down. So
Right.
yeah,
Let's unpack.
and your veterinarian is the best one to kind of counsel you on that. But the basics are you are going to need a series of vaccinations.
Okay.
And the main reason is there's a lot of preventable diseases that your dog can get. Mainly parvovirus is the one we worry the most about.
What is parvovirus?
So it's basically the worst case of stomach flu you could ever imagine. There is no treatment for it.
But there's a vaccine.
There's a vaccine.
Okay.
So prevention is key. They don't always survive parvo if they get it. So you want to be really careful. These are babies. So we don't want to bring them out to the dog beach and hope that they're going to survive. We don't want to expose them to areas where we don't know who's been there before. So we
Until
want to
they've
get
had this vaccine.
till they've had a series of the vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah, so vaccines are really important. Also, just, getting their first exam. Is there anything that we need to know about for the future? Do they have a heart murmur? Or, how does their teeth? How to brush their teeth?
Condition, yeah. How to
Yeah.
brush a puppy's teeth.
How to brush a
Must be
puppy's
very
teeth. It's probably
challenging.
good to get them used to that at that point. Also, do they need grooming? It's the best time ever to get pet insurance when they're little.
Oh,
When they're a
Because
puppy.
they're going to be covered for everything.
That's so great to know.
Yeah, because when they get older, I'm sure it's just like humans.
Well, they're going to have exclusions.
Yes,
It's
and-
like if they had something go wrong, they're going to exclude that the rest of their lives.
Yikes.
So, Dr. Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, you're suggesting that when you have a puppy, one of the first things you should do, obviously take them to the vet, but to get pet insurance for
Yes,
your puppy.
Day one.
Okay.
I got it for my dog when he was 12 weeks old. The first day
Wow.
I had him, pet insurance.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and again, if they're healthy at that point, which you hope they are,
course.
then they're going to be covered for everything the rest of their life.
That totally makes sense. And then do you learn at that first appointment, do you learn about their nutrition and what you should feed
so
them? And
obviously there's a big discussion about, what should you feed them? How often should you feed them? And every puppy is different on their needs. But it is challenging. And then also house training,
oh, yes.
potty
That's so
training.
fun.
Yes.
Potty training. Is there sleep training for puppies?
Well, yeah, that's
Okay.
probably
Like for
sleep training for
newborns,
babies.
Well,
I've had a friend say her puppy keeps her up all night, all the time.
oh.
And so that is challenging. I think same thing with children keeping you up all night, but puppies can do the same. Most people do crate train their puppy. And I
Okay.
think about this, okay, what do puppies like to do? They like to chew everything, right?
Right.
So if they're loose at night while you're sleeping,
Oh, gosh.
what are they going to destroy?
Not a
Or
good
what
idea.
electrical cords are they going to get into? It could be dangerous.
Not good for them or
So
you.
it's better if they go in their crate. And the crate is really like a little den for them.
Yeah.
So you make it, a nice cozy little thing where
Yeah, make
they
it-
feel safe in there.
It's like their bed.
It's like their bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So-
That makes so much more sense.
How do you determine the best feeding schedule for your new puppy?
Yeah, so most puppies need to eat 3 or 4 times per day when they're 8 weeks old. Like they're little, they burn it off quicker and they don't have reserves. By the time they're 6 months old, they can eat twice a day. Some dogs naturally only want to eat once a day. I don't know why. I like my breakfast.
Wow. And that's
So-
okay? Just once a
Yeah,
day. Wow.
but I will say the little tiny ones, the little Yorkies, the little Poms, like they can get hypoglycemic.
Oh.
Where literally if they don't get food every so often,
hours or something.
they're gonna woo.
That happened to my mom's dog. She has a Yorkie. Yeah, it was
I've seen it.
terrifying.
So those dogs you want to be feeding all the time, and even if you're not feeding them the full meal, at least giving them a snack.
Like a little
That was actually my next question, Dr. Kathy. The portions that you give dogs. I've seen such a wide range in what and how much people are feeding their dogs. When you have a new puppy, you're saying, okay, maybe several times a day, but what's
how much the
but how
total?
much? Yeah, how much do you
And
feed them?
they're also
at a time?
growing, so you go, well, maybe today you should feed this amount. What
Yeah.
about next week?
Yeah.
So I usually go on the guidelines of the bags of food that you're using or the brand of food that you're using. And the reason being is food is different calorie density wise. So if you have freshly cooked food, it's a little less calorie dense than really rich kibble.
Okay.
So it's like
Or processed, more
popcorn
processed.
or peanuts.
Yeah.
Like a cup of peanuts has way more calories than a cup of popcorn. So usually you go by the brand's guidelines. Also, most puppies don't overeat.
Oh,
So
okay.
if they're hungry all the time, you may not be feeding them enough.
So they'll
Now,
tell you.
I've seen exceptions.
Right, of course.
Of course, there's always an exception to the rule.
They're like, I'll be eating till there's no more.
Yeah.
But you do want to make sure that they're not just eating so much that and they're like, I need more.
Anymore, right. What about microchipping?
Oh, microchipping.
Tell me about that. I've heard of
Great,
this.
Really great point
that
to bring
important?
up. It's super important. So basically what a microchip is, it's about the size of a grain of rice.
Okay.
And it's implanted kind of like a vaccine pretty much in their shoulder blade area. And the only information it has on there is a series of numbers, usually 15 numbers. So it doesn't have your personal information on there or their personal
It's like a
information.
VIN number.
It's like a VIN number.
Okay, okay.
So in every hospital and shelter, has a scanner that can pick that up. So it's super important because if your dog were to escape or there was an earthquake and it, got out and, got lost, we can find you very quickly. And I've had that happen so many times. I actually one time was driving to work and a little beagle was running down the road. And so I stopped to help him and he just looked at me like, I'll go in your car. And he jumped right in.
Of course you did. You're Dr. Beagle.
I was
You
like,
give that energy.
And yes,
I was like, hello, where would you like to go? I'm your Uber driver for today.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, when we got to the hospital, I scanned him. He had a microchip. And the owner said, oh my gosh, the landscaper left the door open. And so I found the owner within 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
Makes such
Well, it
a
was
big difference.
That dog's lucky day.
I mean, yeah, it really
Dr. Kathy.
was. It really
Come on.
was. To
That's amazing.
Lucked
So
up
you-
on your path.
Recommend, definitely.
Yeah, and
to get your dog.
most of the time, if you get from a shelter or a rescue, they're already microchipped. They know
really?
how important that is.
Is that
Okay.
expensive, getting microchip? Because our dog, he's a rescue.
Not too expensive.
It's not too expensive?
No,
Okay.
exactly.
And
so,
when
it's
should you do
necessary.
it? As a puppy or older?
So, generally somewhere in a puppy, because
Okay.
it is kind of like giving a vaccine. Oftentimes we do it when we spay or neuter.
Okay.
Because they're asleep. We're like, yeah, we can put a bigger needle in you.
Well, that's the next question. When do you spay or neuter?
I'm so glad you brought that
Very
up.
good question. That's a
Yeah.
hot topic these days. So
Yes,
in the
it is.
past, we spayed and neutered everything 4 to 6 months. You're good to go. And now they're finding there are health benefits to waiting longer. And of course, the large breed dogs. Their growth plates aren't, closed on their bones until they're even almost 2 years of age.
Oh.
So the larger they are, the longer we want to wait.
Okay.
Smaller dogs the earliest would be 6 months. They get their adult teeth in there.
And that's just to make sure their growth continues in a healthy.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
so
We
you're not
don't know
stunting
all
their
the
growth.
implications, but there have been enough studies now that I think most veterinarians are convinced we should spay or neuter at a later age.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about crate training. Obviously, that's essential. But let's say you already have some dogs around the house and you get a new puppy.
Yes.
What's the
Great
best way
question.
to socialize your new puppy with
With
the
the
dogs
with
you
the
already have,
existing.
Yes.
with the existing animals, and then outside of the home as well with other puppies who you're not familiar with, or other dogs rather that you're not
Yes,
familiar
very
with?
good question.
Yes.
Because that's really important. We want, we want them to be a
Yeah.
functioning part of our world.
Society.
Yes,
Family.
society.
Yeah.
So for the dogs that you have at home, if you look at it like they're already established, that's their home, and you're bringing a new one in. So if it's a puppy, most of them are pretty accepting. They're kind
Okay.
of disgusted for a week or two.
Oh, really? Just
Nothing
like
to do
big
with it.
brothers or sisters.
Yes, but after a while they're like,
Older
wait, where'd the puppy go? So usually they
Okay.
accommodate pretty well. If it's an adult dog that you're bringing into your home with other existing adult dogs, generally you have to have them meet outside your home so that they can establish a friendship before they come home together.
On what the other dogs already consider to be their territory.
Yes,
And
exactly.
outside the home with your new puppy? What's
So
the best-
outside the new home, so as long as you're up to date on the vaccines.
Okay, right.
And I usually say introduce them to other dogs where they're vaccinated, safe environments. The environment can contain viruses and so forth for a year, even if there's not other dogs there. So you
Really?
do
It's
want to make sure they're
fascinating.
Like it
vaccinated.
stays on the grass?
Yeah,
Oh,
it does.
wow.
Stays in the grass.
Vaccination is so important.
So what you're saying is with your new puppy, you do not recommend just taking them to a doggy park if they have not been properly vaccinated and you don't know all those other dogs who are there currently or who've been there before.
Right. A year ago.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to keep them in a bubble.
Okay.
Okay.
So I like their biggest socialization period is between 12 and 16 weeks.
Okay.
Or at least
Oh,
that's what
wow.
I've heard from
That's the best time to
behaviorists.
socialize.
Yeah, so it's really important. And I always think like if you had a human baby and you didn't introduce them to anybody till they were 12, they'd be like, wow.
What's this? Yeah, that's
So you do
true.
want to do it when they're younger, to introduce them, but in a careful way.
What about, okay, so puppies bringing home to a baby. Puppies and or baby bringing
another
home to a
question.
puppy,
Yes,
how do
exactly.
you do that?
Oh yeah, because that
We did
happens a
something
lot.
special. We did something special. I want to see. I want to
Okay,
hear what
I
Dr.
wanna
Kathy
hear.
says, but I'll share mine too.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you have, let's say you have a puppy or
Okay.
a dog, and you bring home a new baby.
Yes.
Yes. So it is, most dogs will accept that as part of like the new family and,
Okay.
and part of their pack.
Yes.
So, but they do need some sort of introduction. So a lot of people will take the baby's blankets and scent you
So
did
you
that.
did? I
So
wanna-
that they recognize it. And I think it's also really important to acknowledge, almost like, be respectful that they're part of the family. So when you bring the baby home, tell them what a good boy they are, what a good girl they are.
I see.
And then, say what a good baby you are, like this is part of us, but you're not just, being replaced.
Yes.
Because Rocky was our first baby, right?
Yes,
He was the first
Rocky was your
baby
first
we
baby.
had in our house. So that's exactly what we did. And someone had told us that. I'm not sure if it was our
Bring the
vet.
blanket homes, 'cause
So
they're
we
like,
brought
"Oh, I recognize
Yeah,
it."
my husband brought the blanket
Yeah.
home. But I will also say,
So
it
smart.
felt like our dog connected with our baby before he was born.
Oh, maybe
we
he
have
did.
pictures of
That's
Rocky
wild.
on my big pregnant belly, just like resting his head there, like he already was
probably knew.
protective
Yeah.
of the baby, of Beckham. Yeah, who's now 5.5. But yeah, Rocky and Beckham have a very unique bond.
Isn't that interesting?
It was beautiful. It really
bonded
is
before
beautiful.
he was born.
Before he was even born, they just bonded. Yeah.
So cute. I love that.
I know.
You knew he was getting a new family member.
Uh-oh, here's
Yes,
the butt.
he was.
Uh-oh, yeah, here's the butt. What's the
so
butt?
let's go to the opposite scenario.
Okay.
So you have, baby or lots of children at home and you want to bring in a dog.
Yes.
And so that's really critical because we always have to question, like, what's the right age?
Yeah,
And,
that's a really good
really
question.
good question. So, it's really mindful to pick the right, personality of dog. I also believe that, when you're bringing the dog home, pretty much they're going to already see, well, the family's already established, so will I fit in the pack? But making it like okay for all of the participants that they're not rough or pull their hair. I mean, again, 3-year-olds don't know necessarily what to do or not to do.
Yeah.
Right.
So you give them very strict guidelines.
Okay.
I also believe that you just shouldn't put them in a situation where somebody's going to regret it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody's going to make a bad
Don't
choice.
just you guys work it out.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
totally. What age do you recommend to bring home a puppy to your children?
So I think kids are more, well, that's controversial, but I think they're more in tune to what a dog is. Maybe by the time they're 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
Maybe younger than that. They're still pretty evolving themselves.
Yeah.
So they may not
exactly.
appreciate a dog. I did both my kids. My dog was there before my babies.
Right.
And neither one of my children have allergies, which is great.
Which is great.
Definitely something to factor in.
Maybe it's easier as a baby.
Maybe it's
right?
easier because
Yeah,
you just
to-
assume the dog's always been there.
Exactly. Yeah,
So-
they're part of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that
but
makes
at
sense.
older age, it's better to maybe so that they can appreciate what this new dog is.
And let's be honest, so that they can help out.
so they can help out.
With this dog. Yes, exactly.
Are there certain ways that you should play with a puppy or not play with a puppy early on? And should you be giving them certain types of like mental stimulation?
Yeah. So the one of the things, anything you establish as a puppy will probably continue on as an adult.
Okay.
So for example, I always think like, what is a puppy's favorite thing to bite? And I'm like, oh, your fingers. They move, or your toes, or your toes, or your pants. And so if you need to start distracting them, giving them a substitute at early. Otherwise, they'll still do that when they're older, and
fingers
then
older, yeah.
yes, that's not so good.
Yeah.
So keeping them entertained with safe items is a good idea.
Okay. Well, that actually brings up a question I have. What about biting? When puppies
Yes.
bite, I actually get very afraid of that.
Yes.
My grandmother had a puppy that bit
Bit.
a lot. Yes. And was very difficult to train. Is that common? How do you train that?
Yeah, so I find there's a couple different methods, and probably a trainer would know better than myself. But one of the things I do is when puppies, and this is my little test when I first meet them, so we were saying hello, and they'll test out my finger, like, can I bite your finger? Let me see what happens. So I don't say anything, but I actually put my finger underneath their tongue. And the puppies are kind of like,
What? in the
so
world?
it's not a really negative thing, but it's also not very fun.
Yeah.
So then I see them look at the finger again. They go, I don't
forget
like
it.
those.
Okay.
So it's a really
That's a
nice.
good
It's not
trick
like
to
no.
Yeah, that's a really good,
Good trick. So finger under the tongue works pretty well.
What about jumping? I actually
Oh, the
do not like
jumping.
when dogs jump on me.
Rocky
Is that
still
horrible
does
to
that.
say?
Yes.
Don't come over. Rocky's
well-
gonna jump up.
Yes.
It just scares me a little.
And the
bigger
problem-
ones.
The bigger
Sure,
ones, yeah, because they can actually hurt us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, again, I get so excited when a dog comes running towards me and they jump up on me. I'm like, oh, hi.
That's
They get
amazing.
positive reinforcement from
Yeah.
me.
From yes.
So there's lots of methods. Like you can even, if they have a leash on, you can stand on their leash so that they can't jump, And again, you're not yelling at them or saying no. Coming down to their level.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that they don't have to jump up. You actually come down.
These are personal tips I'm going to take away.
Yes.
Yeah, I've also heard to not give them attention, as you've mentioned.
Yes.
To not lean
Not
down or be
reinforce
like,
it.
Yeah, don't, they're like, no, not just the no, but they just give them nothing. Just no reaction whatsoever. Keep turning away. That's what my cousin does, and he has a very large breed dog.
That's a really
That's
good
a really good idea.
Just turns away. But he's also had formal training.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
But he's gotten a lot better about it. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. And do you find that if this is kind of a side note with the children and with the jumping, if there's a child that's really afraid of the dog, is there anything you can do? Do you still tell a child to turn away? My second son is very afraid, and we're trying to get him used to.
Yeah. So again, I feel like I'm really afraid of heights. If you stuck me on top of a cliff and held me over and said, "Okay, get over your fear," I'm not going to get over my fear.
That's not the way to do it.
That's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big believer in let's just make them get used to it.
Yeah.
So it might be good to introduce him to other pets, or small dogs. Smaller always helps.
Yeah.
It calm.
This dog particularly, he's afraid of our neighbor's dog that we're always
Is it
at their
big?
house. It's huge,
Okay,
so
see.
he gets so afraid. Okay,
Maybe
so
he's
that's,
smart, So I think just maybe introducing to smaller, or there are some dogs that are incredible calm that are big. But I do, I always worry, never put them in a situation where.
that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't want to instinctively.
Yes. See,
I thought maybe I should be like massaging this in it. Yeah, so
Yeah, no, I think they'll get there.
yeah, okay, good. That makes total sense.
What ways would you offer for someone to get their puppy to stop barking that are gentle ways?
That are gentle ways, not yelling at them.
Yeah, instead
constantly.
of yelling at us, stop barking. Like that's it.
So again, I do think, if a dog, I'm thinking of a puppy sleeping at night, if they bark and you go in there every time they bark, guess what? They're going to be like, hey, I got control.
baby.
Oh,
Just
I get
like a
positive
baby.
reward.
Yep.
So there is a little bit of let them bark. They're not going to get what, if they're not lacking food, they went to the bathroom, they don't need anything, they're just barking. So
Yeah,
I think sort of it's also don't reinforce the behavior that you don't want.
Well, and this
Yes.
again, it's similar. I'm sorry I keep bringing this back to motherhood, but I would say I have heard so many times that you should have a puppy before having a baby because it kind of trains you. And this type
Probably
of-
does.
Is that true? Have you noticed, or with puppies, or it trains you for motherhood?
I don't think
We're
anything
on-
trains us for motherhood.
Nothing
No,
trains
honey,
you.
We're on
That's
our
true.
own.
You're
We are on our
There's no
own.
handbook.
Like I
You
should
can
have
read
gotten
every
a
book.
dog. What was I thinking? I could have done this better now. Do you, when you have a puppy and you're feeding them, for example, is it important to pet them while they eat?
Oh,
or
good point.
Or leave them alone.
leave them alone?
Well, so the one thing you never want to have is a dog that's very possessive about its food. You need to be the owner of that food.
interesting.
So, because again, you don't want anybody to get bit if they by accident, took the dog's bowl, and the dog got possessive. So as a puppy, you can actually be like, you actually hold the bowl, you have power of the food.
Okay.
And then you put the food down and then you say, okay, you release them to eat. And so basically they're like, oh, it's okay.
It's okay to eat.
It's okay to eat, which means you can also take the food away because you're in charge.
You have
So-
power of the food. That's so interesting.
Okay, we mentioned playing with your puppy, playtime
Yes.
with your puppy, mental stimulation. What kinds of puppy toys would you recommend?
Yes, so ones that they can't swallow whole.
Okay.
So bigger is usually better.
Okay.
So even I feel like French bulldogs swallow everything whole. They really do. So you get them a big bowl and they'll be like, well,
Oh no.
you're like, okay, we have to go to the emergency vet now.
No.
So bigger things are good because they can't choke on them. And, things that, again, they like the interaction with us so
Right.
that you can move and play with.
Yeah.
And again, you want a toy like that's big where they want to chew on your hands and fingers and you can put the toy in their way.
Cool.
So that's one good one.
Squeaky toys.
Squeaky
I have to
toys.
ask about that because here. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, squeaky toys. What was your
Yes.
Our dog
Experience.
has always tried to rip it out, and
Oh,
once
they
but
tear
that,
them up.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's a hazard for the dog. That
is.
little squeaking thing. I mean, it's fun to play with. They like the sound, but that always terrifies
the squeaky
me.
toys can need surgery if they swallow them.
my
They
gosh.
don't
'Cause they're
always go through.
plastic. on the
Yeah,
inside?
so squeaky toys you have to be careful with. Again, if they're like Rocky, if they shred them
Ripping
and
it
pull it
open,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to ask about, because I've seen this in Los Angeles, puppy yoga. Have you seen this?
Oh my gosh, there's puppy yoga. I've
we
seen
have
goat
everything.
yoga. I've never seen
Yep, goat
puppy
yoga.
yoga.
I've seen goat yoga.
I've seen goat
either.
yoga. Yeah.
So I think it's a phenomenal idea just because it's something you're doing with your dog.
Mm,
You know, whether or not they really get the concept, I feel like, you know, puppies are pretty much made out of rubber. They probably have really good flexibility. So if they think it's like something fun that they're doing with you, I think it's
Bonding.
a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, do they really need it from a medical perspective?
No.
Probably not.
They need the meditation aspect.
Yes.
That's so
Is there
true.
such a thing as too much exercise for a growing puppy?
Oh, that's a great
Yes,
question.
that's a really good question. So, you know, if puppies have a lot of energy, and if
Yes.
you're, you know, running with them and they seem to keep up with you, you're probably fine. If you are like, well, I'm determined that me and my puppy are going to run a marathon,
gosh.
you know,
goodness.
you're probably overdoing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They really, you know, if they're exercising at their own pace, they're not really going to hurt their bones or their, you know, you're not going to hurt their growth plates. It's just if they're being forced to do things that they really shouldn't have done.
Yeah, or
be doing.
heat,
Or
exhaustion,
heat.
stuff
Yeah.
Or their little paws
Or their little
on the
paws.
asphalt or on
Yeah.
the sidewalk. Yeah.
They're still growing. Like
They're still growing and they're very sensitive. If it's too hot for your feet, it's too hot for your doggy's paws.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
For
rule
sure,
of thumb.
for sure.
Well, and going back just a sec to the feeding aspect, I remember my grandmother would literally, when she got a puppy, she would let the dog eat off the floor all the time. Is that not a good idea?
Probably not.
Okay, all right.
I will say when my boys were toddlers and they were in the high chair, my dog just like
That's what I mean.
lived under the high chair.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
got applesauce in her head. and-
Exactly. Oh, they love it, but it's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
Okay, especially for a grown
And so I do,
puppy.
even for my dog getting home cooked food, he always gets his food in a dog bowl. So he never
Okay.
begs at the table because it's not that much fun. I mean, I'm sure he's, whatever we're eating, if we're having salmon, I do cook a little piece of salmon for him. But again, I feed it
And
to
you
him
put
in
it
his
in
bowl.
the dog bowl. Okay, that's great. Those are great habits to start when they're puppies.
Yes.
Are there other great habits you should start with your dog as a
Oh,
puppy?
yes.
What are they?
Touching their feet.
Oh, why?
So guess what? Dogs typically don't like their nails trimmed. Can you trim your dog's
I'm
nails?
terrified of trimming their nails because of an experience I had when I was younger, and I cut it too short, and oh my god, I can still hear my dog. Yeah.
So, but
Never-
a lot of dogs, you know, again, they don't like their toes are sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get them used to cutting their nails as a puppy or just touching their feet,
Okay.
then when you bring them in for a nail trim, it's no big deal.
No big deal.
Or you can trim
Okay.
them at home. But if you wait until they're 2 years old, it's never going to happen.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, then it's really difficult to trim dogs' nails. Yeah.
Any other practices that you'd say are good to start when they're puppies?
Yeah, basically just looking in their mouth,
Okay.
like brushing their teeth,
Getting-
and
teeth.
you know, yeah. So just that you're in charge, you can actually touch any part of their body, and it's okay. You're doing it gently.
That's so cool. I didn't even know that you would brush a puppy's teeth, but it makes so much sense. Again, you do that with babies so that they get used to it.
So they get used to
Yes,
it, not because
it's
they're
not because they're going to get cavities, but
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
But I mean, you've mentioned how, and we all know this, puppies do like to chew on things, nibble on
Right.
things. What do you give them as an alternative to keep them from chewing on your shoes or whatever they find?
Yes, because they love shoes. They're like,
do love shoes.
oh, there's all kinds of things there that I can rip off.
Not my
chew
Louboutins.
on. So one of my favorite things, so they make certain toys where you can actually put peanut butter on the inside. And usually dog-friendly peanut butter is the best.
Yes.
Or, I mean, you can
Oh, I
use
didn't
regular
know there
peanut
was a
butter.
dog-friendly peanut
well,
butter.
here's the deal.
didn't either.
A lot of our peanut butter is sweetened. And
Oh,
if there's a
right.
sweetener called xylitol,
Very bad.
which is in a lot of things that will kill your dog.
Yes.
So you want to use either peanut butter that's made for a dog or peanut butter that doesn't have xylitol.
Thank you.
In it.
Yeah.
I didn't know about
So
xylitol.
you put it in, and they make even lick pads. I've seen these are really cute. So it's like a little nooks and cranny. You just slap it down, and then it keeps them busy. They're like,
Where's that peanut butter?
Yeah,
I
where's
find
that
it.
peanut
Yeah,
butter?
yeah.
So
That
it does
makes
keep
sense.
them busy, and it's self-rewarding.
My grandma used to put their medicine in the peanut butter too.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
feed
smart
it,
idea,
yeah,
to give
yeah.
them a pill.
Give them a little pill. Well, that's for older dogs, but yeah. The peanut butter is a good trick for everything.
Would you say they're like daily needs for a puppy? I know you talked about if your puppy can keep up with you when you're doing a walk, that's great. But is there like a requirement for the amount of exercise you should give your puppy, or?
Yeah, so I think, again, at least twice a day getting out is really important, more often if you can. Again, we live in a real world where we all work, and we can't always accommodate that. But ideally, if you could get out more often, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
And then feeding, obviously in the morning and at night. A good bedtime routine. It's funny. I feel like dogs. I do see some dogs where they're morning dogs. They're up at like 5 a.m. Like, let's go.
Let's get this.
And then there's other ones who are like, yeah, go ahead without me. I'll be up at 10.
I'm sleeping in.
Oh,
In
where do
today.
you stand on a harness? Are you more like as a collared? Is it better to start your dog with a collar or with a harness?
So the smaller dogs probably are much better in a harness.
Okay.
Because again, you want to be careful of their little tiny tracheas and their necks and so forth. Whereas a large dog, like if you have a collar on, let's say, a great big Doberman Pinscher, you're not going to have a lot of control. And so they do make other alternatives. If you put a harness on a Great Dane or a Husky, it's probably going to just be a sled dog and pull you down the street.
Oh goodness!
Good luck.
I can't even.
So they make something called a gentle leader, where they put it's like a little strap that goes around their nose and behind their ears, and it looks like, how could you control your dog with that? But think about a horse. Like, how do we lead a horse around? We have one little band on their nose, one behind the ears. You're talking, 1,000-pound animal that can pretty much mow you down. And they're like, okay, I'll go wherever you're going. It works for dogs.
Does it work like a muzzle too? Like, is it also covering their mouth? So they still have.
So
Okay.
it just goes over the top of their nose. It's
I've
a very
never
thin little
seen
strap,
that.
but it pulls on the right pressure points. You have full
Oh,
control.
is that what it is? It's the
yeah,
pressure points? Okay.
Yeah, same thing with a horse.
You recommend that for a larger breed?
for a
dog.
larger breed.
Okay, and when you say larger breed, give me a more distinctive.
like over 50 pounds.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
Great
That makes
Danes,
sense.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that's really big.
That's right. Well, we keep Rocky in a harness, and he seems
Harness
to
is
really.
small. He's little.
Yeah, he's a little
Little,
dog.
yeah,
So
that
he,
makes
he seems to, because we tried the alternative and he was just not with a collar. Like, and I always felt bad. Like, oh, I don't want to pull it too hard around.
Yeah, of
his
course.
neck.
Yeah.
And the harness just works for him. He even knows how to help. Well, every time he acts like it's the first time, so we make fun of him because he'll put his paw. Like, is it this side or is it? Wait, how do I put the harness on? It's like we do this
We do
daily,
this every day.
multiple times a day.
let's do
Like, dude, what are you doing?
Oh man.
It is time for one of our favorite segments. It's
Yes.
Ask the Expert. And of course, Dr. Kathy, you are our expert.
And we have a mini expert here.
We do. It's Cooper.
I'm so glad for the dog. If you are listening and not watching, Cooper is the cutest dog ever.
That part.
He is the cutest dog ever. And if you have any questions, you can just speak up, okay? Yeah, good boy.
So chill.
Wouldn't it be
right
funny if
now.
he barked right now? Okay, Dr. Kathy, here's our first question from one of our viewers/listeners. How do you deal with difficulty with housebreaking?
Yes, housebreaking can be very, very challenging. So yes, you have to be a little bit patient to do it. There's lots of different ways to do it. Obviously, you want to start early, but you have to not have unrealistic expectations. It's going to take time. Some dogs learn quicker than others. One of the really cool things they have now, there's actually sod, like replaceable sod that they'll put outside on your porch. If you live in a condo, where they bring in fresh grass like every 2 weeks. And it's so cool because if you live in a condo, when my dog was little, when he had to go to the bathroom, I could see his cues. We had to go all the way down the hallway, wait for the elevator, go down 8 floors, go outside. I was like,
right.
I had to carry a cleaning bucket with me.
I get it.
Oh, man.
So again, there are things that are helpful in
Sure.
that regard.
Wow, I would never have thought of that.
yeah.
That's so true. So
Yeah.
important.
So
And I guess that sod will help them have like a semblance of what it's like to go out on the
so when they
grass.
get older and they can hold it a little
cool.
longer,
That
because
part.
little puppies are like, I need to pee now.
Now, it's
Yeah.
happening now.
Yes. So they don't have any control. But as they get to be, 4 to 6 months, usually they're a little better control.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's hope.
There is hope.
There's hope.
Okay, here's another question for Cooper and for you, Dr. Kathy.
What do you say?
I don't think he's going to like this one. Does neutering help male dogs with territorial
your ears.
issues?
Cover your
And what's the best age to do it so that they won't ruin growth?
Yeah, so the guidelines for neutering dogs has changed quite a bit. It used to be much earlier, between like 4 and 6 months, but now we know that it's actually good for their health to wait a little bit longer.
Okay.
Cooper was smart to leave at that moment.
Yeah, he was out. He took his exit.
But yeah, so for larger breed dogs, we like to wait a little bit longer, maybe even up to 2 years of age or older.
wow.
Yeah. For the smaller ones, it kind of depends on their personality. I personally think it's good to wait till they're about a year old, as long as they're not obnoxious and peeing on your leg and
Yeah.
marking all the territory, you
All
know.
that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up about sometimes our dogs can be a bit obnoxious. Yeah, not you, Cooper. I'm not talking about you.
You're perfect.
What's the best advice that you can give somebody who has like a super hyper breed of dog,
yeah.
like a
Great
Beagle, Boston Terrier, maybe a Dachshund mix?
Yeah, super hyper.
Yes.
So yeah, again, finding things that can burn off some of that energy, and I think outdoor activity. I think so many of us don't realize, like, you know, we're busy working and we don't really get the time to go outside and pay attention to our dog and really let them run, let them play, you know, focus on
Yes.
them. And I think if they get some of that attention, that really helps.
That makes total sense. We've all met those dogs. In fact, the listener who put in this question said, even a dog trainer told me, good luck.
My goodness. That doesn't bode well. I know.
That makes sense, trying to burn off that energy.
For sure.
And whatever it takes to do that. And again, there's lots of really fun games now, like puzzle games for dogs.
Really?
Yeah.
cool.
So basically, you put the little treats in the puzzles, and they have to shift it with their nose
Wait,
to get the treat out.
So it's also like a mental
It's a
stimulation.
mental stimulation.
I know.
So
Genius
it's really, really
dogs.
cool. So yeah, so a lot of times that keeps them busy, just like us. We like mental and physical
Exactly.
stimulation, and of course they get a treat for that.
Oh, yeah.
there's that
definitely.
part.
Wouldn't you like
Earn
that,
it.
Cooper?
Yes,
Yes.
Cooper, whenever treats are involved.
Cooper.
Obviously. Thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah,
Kathy. We
thank
appreciate your
you.
time.
Oh, absolutely.
This is great.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us and being part of our growing community.
Stay tuned for new Care Expert episodes every Wednesday. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and YouTube.